So just tell me a little bit about the condition of the property and kind of what you're looking to do. So I always like to say that this is like from the 35,000 foot level. So when that offer goes out, it's just assuming that there's no major things wrong with the property. So when I come out for an inspection, I'm going to be, looking at the roof, the mechanicals, some settling, welcome to Oklahoma kind of stuff. Right. So, yeah. So just give me kind of a what you think and
Okay, so the roof, I'm sure needs to be replaced because it has not been replaced. I think it was replaced when
a pretty good live interaction of what actually goes on in wholesaling and the conversations and the real life of it, because a lot of times what you see on TV and what they talk about on social media is, you go find a contract, um, go buy a house for cheap, and then you turn around and you sell it for a profit. But when you really break it down in the process and you look at the numbers, you look at the conversations. I mean, you let conversation, for example, the things that we actually go through and deal with to be able to make make that wholesale fee. That wholesale fee can range, 5, 15, 5, 10, $20,000, but how much time and energy, how much money did we spend in marketing to get that lead to call in? How many conversations did we have to be able to get one of those to convert? So, yeah, we made $15,000 on that deal, but hell, it cost me $10,000 to get it. So it's not as pretty. It's not as rainbows and roses as what it sounds like on the internet. Yeah, sure, it's a simple idea. You go buy a house or get a house under contract and then sell it to somebody else without having to actually buy it or put your own money into it. But if you've ever try to do any marketing without any money, it doesn't really work. It's not what it's made out to be. You got to spend the time and the money to do the marketing to get the people, get the phone to ring. That, or you got to skip trace. So you got to go knock doors. I mean, you got to find people who need to sell, not want to sell, not maybe should sell, not I have a pretty house that needs to go on the market to sell, but I need to sell a house. I have inherited. It's a rental. It's vacant. It's there's bankruptcy. There's death. There's divorce. There's a lot of things that contribute to people needing to sell, because no one's going to want to sell you a house for less than it's worth. Let's be real. You have to be, or they have to be in a situation. Now, I've also heard this is like, oh, you're preying on people and you're taking advantage of them. No, we're helping them solve a problem and providing a solution to something that they couldn't do before we were there. That we come in, but we have to understand the stress of the situation, and the people aren't calling you on a good day. That's not how it works. And you have to understand and how to handle those conversations, how to deal with those people, and also have to handle the emotions. I mean, that they inherited that house, but I mean, she wants to sell it, but she doesn't want to sell it. She wants to be realistic, but she wants as much money as she can get. I mean, I get it. All those things are applicable, but you also listen to the list of work that the house needs, and I get her number is not realistic. I mean, it's great. I would love to pay her that, but we can't pay her that and make enough money. So we have to look at it objectively. We have to look at it from, real point of view numbers, because when you're wholesaling, if you're wholesaling or just in buying houses in general, you make your money when you buy the property. You watch these TV shows. Oh, the roof is bad. I didn't know that. It's got to be fake. There's no way you can't know, but you can't go and just magically make appreciations and make up numbers after you spent too much money in hopes to get your money back. It doesn't work that way. Like, you make your money when you buy it. What I mean, this is what it's worth. This is what it's going to cost to fix it. And if you don't buy it in the right spot, you're never going to make that up. The value is not going to appreciate rapidly enough unless you're in one of these hyper markets. You see it in California, you see it in Texas or Florida, like some of those crazy markets. On a side note, I don't suggest you go invest there. It's not very. I mean, if you're riding the wave and you're in the right place at the right time, you can make some money. But most people, anyhow, you're not going to ride the appreciation. So you have to be educated when you buy the house and buy it at a number that makes sense. And now, what you do with it, if you remodel it, I mean, you have to be able to buy it cheap enough to have enough room to pay for the remodel, pay the transaction costs, because you got to factor in, like, okay, yeah, we buy it for 90, but we got to pay closing cost and taxes and on these things on it. So we spend another $2,000 or $3,000 on transaction cost. We spend 45,000 on the remodel. Well, then now you got to sell it. Now we got the more transaction costs. We've got to pay commissions. We got to pay closing. We got to pay abstracting. Like there's a lot of fees that goes involved with it. And then we're not even counting money costs. I mean, if you're paying cash out of pocket, it's your money. That's one thing. You don't incur a fee for that. However, if you go borrow hard money, if you go take a bank loan from the bank, you got to factor in the interest that you're going to pay to use that money. Now, when the way that we you things is we factor all these things in. Okay, it's worth 150. It's going to cost us on average an estimated 10% to sell it. If you sell it for less, great, you got a bonus, but factor in 10%. So it's going to cost $15,000 in transaction cost. So you go from 150 to 135. Well, I want to make 25,000. Now you can make more, you can make less. I mean, if you want to make 40, good luck. The numbers just get tighter. But let's say that number is 25,000. So you went from 150 to 135 to 110. And you haven't even picked up a wrench yet, or a hammer is probably better. You don't do a lot of wrenching in houses. You do that more on cars. But you haven't even picked up a hammer yet, and you're down to 110,000. Well, the lady's at 90, and we know it needs at least $40,000 worth of work. But you continue this digression. So if we know we're going to cost 10% to sell it, we want to make $25,000. We have to be all in for 110. So 110, and we set a $45,000 remodel. So that brings you down to 65. Now, so you have to buy it for 65. But what we didn't factor in, or you haven't heard yet, is your money cost. And the way that we do it, we like hard money, we like private money, we like to bring in investors and not give opportunities for other people to participate and make a return on their money. But you're paying, if you go to the bank, you're paying 1.9%. You go to hard money, you pay 2 or 3 points and 12 to 15%. So let's say that you do the deal and you have it. It takes you 4 to 6 months from start to finish, and you're paying whatever the interest rate is. I mean, for round numbers, this is not real by any means, but you're paying $1,000 a month in interest for the loan. So it costs you $5,000 to borrow the money. So you either take that $5,000 off your profit of $25,000, you only make 20, or you take it off of your purchase price and you only actually can buy it for 50 or 60. 60.
Yep, that's what I said, right?
60.
Here, there's your number.
Yeah, 57,250.
Yep.
Yeah, 57,250 is the number that we should buy to buy this to make a profitable flip. If you're going to wholesale it, I have to buy it for 57. That means you got to buy it for less.
Mm-hmm. And so I don't worry about when she says I have an offer at 80 or 90, right? I'm still going to throw out my number, right? And I'm going to do quick math. I'm going to tell her, well, in a perfect world, I need to buy that for 57. So that has already been anchored to her. And I know she's not going to sell it to me for 57 when she's got an offer for 90. But now the art of this is I got to find that middle ground where we can sell it and make money and she can sell it and be happy.
Correct. Now, when we walk through houses, I mean, we have enough not education, but we have enough construction background that we understand roughly what it costs to fix things. I mean, we run a construction company, so we have a pretty good idea of what it costs. So we're able to walk in, and what we like to do, I mean, it's kind of, you want to create a little bit of pain, and I say that lovingly. You want to point out the things that you see. Like, people don't understand what the construction really costs these days and how much you're going to spend to fix these things. And I find that when you walk through these houses with people and you're like, well, you do this. And I'm very transparent and honest. Like, I'm going to take out that wall. I'm going to fix this bathroom. I'm going to get this kitchen. I'm going to do this. We got to do HVAC. We got to do electrical, putting in windows. It needs a roof. I mean, the hot water tank is older than my kids. It's like, it needs these things, and this is what these things cost. So, but we're able to educate in the process. So one of the things, having the local experience and also having access to the checkbook, like, we not only are we experienced in locals, like, we're cash buyers. So if we do come to an agreement on a number, now let me point out, other people will pay you more than we will. If getting the top dollar is your number one priority, we're probably not the best fit. What we do is we provide a seamless, the easiest transaction that you'll have. I mean, once we come to an agreement on a number, we shake hands, we sign a little bit of paperwork, we turn it over, we handle everything, and we cut you a check when the title's ready. Like you don't, we can't make it any easier. Like you take what you want, leave if you don't. Like it literally just pick up what you need and you don't have to look back. And that's, we offer that to our sellers, and oftentimes providing that option with a combination of education, we can buy the property for less what other people offered, because we build the trust, the credibility, and we shared information.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And even, there's a reason why I talk about the competition, right? Because it's real. Out of state investors often drop the ball. But I also want to say, hey, there is other really good companies in our area. So you work with any of those, because I'm not afraid of our reputation, right? I'm not afraid that we're going to lowball them. We're going to do anything like that. It is what it is. And we just have to educate them. When you talk about, pointing out, the hole in the soffit or whatever it is, the crack, if you're in a house long enough, you become blind to that, right? So I always think of it like when you want to buy whatever car it is, and all of a sudden you buy that car, and all of a sudden you see that car everywhere you go.
You want a red car, and you buy a red car. That's a red car, red car, red car.
Exactly. So once you point that out to them, now every time they come to that room or that area, they see it and it stands out to them, and so it has an effect.
People say wholesaling is the best place to start, and I frankly think that's garbage. It is probably, arguably, the hardest job in the business if you really think about the functionality of what you have to do and how you have to do it, because you got to market to sellers. So you have to more than likely spend money on marketing of some kind. And I tell you, we like direct mail. We use Facebook. We use Google AdWords. We've been on TV. We've been on the radio. I mean, you name it. We have spent thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on marketing to get the phone to ring for people to sell our houses. Sometimes it pays off. Sometimes it doesn't. But, you're spending money to get the phone to ring, or you're spending the energy and the mental capital of tracking down, script tracing, and cold calling people to get them to sell you your house. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big fan of cold calling. People do it, and then now they do these text message things. It's crazy. Anyhow, but you gotta talk to people, and then when you talk to people, you have to talk to people in a manner that is appropriate for the situation, and just meeting them where they are, and then secondly, meeting them as a industry expert, as a person who understands and knows what they're doing, and somebody that's professional at buying and selling and remodeling properties. And and in the beginning, this is where you're supposed to start, but at the same time, you're supposed to just fake it till you make it, and present yourself as an educated buyer to the sellers. Does this sound on track here?
Yeah.
So this is step one. Now you got to figure out, okay, you got to go and you have to get them on the phone, and then you have to get them to the property. You got to see the property. Why do you have to see the property? Well, how do you know what you're buying? How do you know what you need to fix? How do you know what it's going to kind of cost if you don't walk through it? So now brings you to step two. Now that you found somebody who's willing to talk to you and show you a house, you got to go in there and you got to look at it, and you got to look at it in a investor perspective. I say that is, when we walk in a house, we're looking for certain things. We're looking for very specific items and what it's going to cost us. Like, I don't give two shits about the floor plan, about the paint color, about the windows. I want to know what's it going to cost me and how much we can make. That's all that matters. So you have to go into a house and give an estimate, a border, an outline of what you think it's going to cost. Now, I caution, a word of caution, because if you are a wholesaler and you get a property under contract and you email it to a list of seasoned investors and you say $5,000 in repairs, we know you're full of shit, and we're just going to delete the email. Like, we're not even going to bother talking to you. So you have to be fairly realistic with this number. Now, it's also very subjective, and it maybe it's better not to, maybe to give a range and not give real detail, because the scope of work for everyone is different. There are some people who are going to go in depth and really, do full on updates, electrical, plumbing, heat and air, and make all that. And you have people who are going to go and paint it and rent it. So you don't want to give an unrealistic number, but you also don't want to prejudge it for somebody else. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. So you got to be careful. You got to know what you're doing, but you have to leave room for interpretation. So now that you've figured out what it's going to cost to fix it, you know what to offer, right? But wait, what's it worth? So if if we like to work backwards, like if it's worth 150 and we start deducting, like you have to know what your top line is to know how to get to the bottom line. So how do you know what it's worth? Now, and don't say Zillow. Please don't say Zillow. I mean, you can use Zillow. It has information, but you need to really look at the raw data if you're going to use Zillow or Realtor or Trulia.
Use Zillow if you look at the solds.
Yeah, you got to look at raw data.
Yeah.
So now the other answer is MLS. Well, you don't have access to MLS unless you're an agent or have an agent. So, and that's a whole nother story. So so you're tracking with me. You got to market and find a house. You got to talk to somebody and convince them to sell you their house at a discount. Then you got to figure out what it's going to take to fix a house and what the house is worth. Now it gets more exciting. You have a deal, right? Now you got to sell it. You know who's buying? I mean, you have to have a buyer's list of some sort. Now, there's multiple ways of going about this. You can go networking, you can go to the RIA, you can get on Facebook, you can do these posts and say, "Hey, I'm building the buyer's list," and deficient for names. What we used to do, and of course, this is kind of showing my age, go to county record and see who's buying stuff. Yeah. Figure out who's closing transactions and get a hold of them. But anyway, you got to have a buyer's list. So you have these investors. You send out your email. You have people come to look at the house. So now you're playing both sides of the coin. Like you just negotiated this deal with the seller, and you feel good about yourself. But now you have a seasoned investor come in that doesn't give two shits about how you feel, and he's going to tell you he's going to tear it apart because he wants the best deal he can get.
And he doesn't want you to make $25,000.
He does not want you to make $25,000.
He thinks that's greedy on your part.
Right, because they and I say this, I'm a flipper by trade. It's easier to flip houses than it is to wholesale houses. But you have those investors who think that you are making too much. You have those people who think that it's outrageous for you to make a profit on the work that you put in. No, but at the same time, these are the same people who are coming to you for deals because they can't find their own stuff.
Right, and they're not taking into account the marketing, what you did, all of that to get that one deal. And that 25,000 may be the one deal that you might have for a month. It may be 6 months, depending on how much marketing you're sending out. So, and what your cost is. So, but you have to have thick skin as a wholesaler because you get it from both sides, right?
Right. Now, so you get the buyers to come in and they negotiate the best deal for them. And hopefully that you have a margin left. Now you got to go take it through title. Now you got to go to the title company, and Oklahoma is probably one of the few left one of the very few states that still do abstracting. But you got to update title and get through the title process. And so you're at this point you're basically a magician that's doing a juggling act because you have to keep all these pieces, all these balls in the air, and make sure everything comes together at the time of closing, and that your buyer shows up with cash, and be how often people show up without cash, or just ghost you 3 days before closing. Whoop, they're gone. So you have to make sure that your buyer is going to show up. You have to make sure that your seller shows up, because I've had that happen too, where well, you're making too much money off us. We're going to sell it to somebody else, or we got a better offer. That crap happens too. Somebody offers us more money. So you have to get all of these things to the closing table to get your little check. Now that check could be $5. A check could be 25 grand. It all depends on how well you juggle all those balls.
Yep.
Still want to wholesale?
And the best advice I would say is don't worry about it. That just get the deal done. And if you make 5,000, great. If you make 25,000, even better. But that can't be your focus. It can be your desire. You can work your numbers, do your homework, and that's your goal. But if you make 5,000, you at least paid for your marketing.
Sometimes. We've spent $20,000 a month in marketing and made $100,000 in wholesale fees. We've had months that we spent $20,000 in marketing and didn't get
nothing. Phone's not ringing. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and the marketing that you do matters. The marketing that you do changes. It is an evolution. I mean, we have been marketing to direct to sellers for well over a decade. And we utilize a lot of sources. I mean, I can tell you in the course of my career, we have purchased and remodeled more than 600 houses. And I can also tell you of those 600 houses, I mean, a handful of houses that came off MLS, off the market. Like everything we do is direct to seller one way or another. Now we utilize wholesalers, not so much now that we spend so much in marketing and we are in that industry expert position. And then of course we have reputation, we have Facebook, and I mean, just the realm of influence has expanded, so we don't have to work near as hard as what we used to. But we've always put out, and I still to this day, my favorite is direct mail. Like we like letters. I don't understand people. I mean, it works.
No.
I mean, you have all this technology. You have 100 ways. I've actually hunted people down on Facebook and say, "Hey, do you own this?" and bought it.
Yeah.
That works really well for lots.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing what we're getting right now. And the one thing, another that we didn't really talk about was that even if you get the lead, even if you get the appointment, even if you have your numbers, right, they still have to like you, right? You still have to close the deal, And last week I was fortunate, I went out to 5 appointments and closed 3 out of the 5, right? 60%.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good, right? And so I've been able to build on that this month. It's been a great month, right? But
you got more this month than you did the last quarter.
Yeah, and I'm not done yet. I still have a list.
But I mean, I mean, you look at the amount of deals that we have matched last quarter, the first quarter in 1 month.
Yeah, but that also is the key thing too. So that's why the direct marketing and that campaign is so important, to be consistent, because then you start to get the momentum. You start not only mentally, but actual the phone rings, right? And if you drop a month, it'll take you 2 months to recover from that. And even though we were a little late in this last mailing, but we're recovering from it.
We have a better list on this last mailing because we took time to adjust our target and weed out some zip codes that we got a ton of calls on that we just didn't have a ton of buyers for.
Yeah. And we're still getting some. So you still will get some of that residual. Some will still finally open up that mail. But no, it's good. But, it's just one part of investing. It can be a great part for building quick cash, but it's not a silver bullet by any sense of the imagination.
It's great for extra cash. It's a great way to, if you are limited, I mean, you say this, I don't know, it's terrible. I really think that it would be easier to go buy and flip a house than it would be to buy and wholesale a house, to be my honest opinion. Like real talk. Like just because of all the moving parts and the components. Like when I started, like I'm a wholesaler. I just don't have the organization abilities and the patience to deal with that many people on a regular basis to hold those pieces together. And I figured out really quickly that I could get ahead of most of the other flippers, and I could keep ourselves busy by maintaining the marketing and maintaining the contact with the sellers, but keeping, like, I'm a wholesaler. Like my buyers list was 3 and I kept most of them.
Yeah. No, again, that's the hardest part, I think, of the business. I've been doing the first part of it, so long that just seems very easy, but that part of having the buyer, having to deal with the buyer, keep that list current, that's a whole other job, and very
It's a
difficult.
whole different skill set there.
Yeah.
Acquisitions and dispositions is a different skill set, different personality. It takes different conversations, and you're dealing with a different. I don't want to say class, but different. What's a good word for
Mindset.
this? Mindset. Different level of people, different mindset of people.
Desire, yeah.
Demographic. I like that. Dealing
Yeah.
with a different demographic of people on the acquisition side versus the selling disposition side.
Mhm.
So, I mean, and there was a time, and this is because I'm stubborn, hard-headed, and have to do everything myself, that I did everything myself. And I was fairly okay with it. And I was successful in the place I was at, but I was also the bottleneck that limited my growth. And now we have a team, and there's 3 or 4 of us that are regularly involved. Like he handles acquisitions, Molly handles dispositions. I'm kind of a third party in between, making sure that everything lines up and checks all the boxes, and more of a just industry and local market expert, but also I have in a construction background. I can look at these pictures. I can look at these things and very quickly analyze and make sure that we're in the right box.
Yeah.
But it takes a team of us in order to really, and that's not, and then you count the direct mail guy, then you have the internet marketing guy. So, there's 5 of us that work almost full time
Yeah.
to wholesale houses. So, that's why, when you say $5,000 is not much money. We spend more than that on marketing. And then you figure how many people are involved. Like, if we're making less than $15,000, it's really not worth it.
No, not
On a wholesale.
Yeah.
Now, if you're doing a flip, it needs to be higher. But
Yep. Yeah. And you got to be able to. That's a whole other conversation, because now, you're in the place where you have learned over time and everything to have most of that in house. But the guy starting out, who's got to look for, the tile guy, the electrician, the plumber, the cider, the sheetrocker, the roofer, the window installer, and get them all to show up and get done in 9 weeks.
yeah.
Come
So
on.
if you're going to do real estate, be prepared to kiss a lot of frogs. However you go about this, you're going to kiss a lot of frogs. If you're buying, if you're selling, if you're flipping, if you're renting, you're going to kiss a lot of frogs.
Yep.